Bill, I don't know if we're streaming or not because another app is using our encoder. I don't know how that's possible, but
this is how it begins.
it is.
This is how they take over.
It's so strange. Let me see if we are streaming.
It says live.
You know what we can do? I can go right to Facebook and actually see instantly.
That's fun.
In an instant. All right. Well, here we go. We are live.
Right, there we are.
We are officially live. Yeah. Reynolds sees us.
Happy Thanksgiving Eve, Reynolds.
Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving Eve. Well, I just want to go at you before we record. I want to go to the Twitter. You want to talk about the first thing? Jason Michelle wrote something. I think I skimmed it about what Sarah Huckabee got laying down the law, not the gospel. There was this at the last press conference. You had to say something you were thankful for. In order to ask a question. Right. And the one was like, I'm thankful for the opportunity to hold you guys accountable and ask these questions. But it was very, very strange. Hey, John Foster, it's good to see you there, buddy. What's John saying? Day for a holiday, we're troopers. Yeah, well, it's we for two things. It's fun. People are probably winding down, and also, maybe people want to have stuff to listen to.
Yeah.
All right. So
hey, by the way, Reynolds, what is a have Alabama side dish at Thanksgiving? If you're listening still.
A have to have
side dish in Alabama for Thanksgiving. I'm just curious.
Okay, so here we have.
Here we go.
This is
somebody. Jason won Best Preacher this morning.
Oh yeah, he's Jason. He's been in the zone lately. He really has been.
Was there a contest?
I don't know if there's a contest, but maybe Reynolds listened to a sermon or something. He's been on fire lately. He's been
good.
Just very productive. Very, seems like he's thinking a lot.
Thinking. He's been out there, and we're going down.
Yeah, we're going down in 2 weeks. We'll be down there in D.C. Yeah. So come out and see us if you're in the D.C. area.
Pecan pie dressing. Oh wow, that sounds good. Yeah, sometimes pecan. I like it, but it is rich pecan pie.
Trump didn't He did pardon the turkey. I'm surprised. I thought he would go snap and snack. So this was this morning at like 5 a.m. or something. It wasn't the White House. It wasn't the State Department. It wasn't Father LeVar's so-called people on the ground in China that got his son out of a long-term prison sentence. It was me. Too bad. LeVar's just a poor man's version of Don King, but without the hair. Just think, LeVar, you could have spent the next 5 to 10 years during Thanksgiving with your son in China, but no NBA contract to support you. But remember, LeVar, shoplifting is not a little thing. It's a really big deal, especially in China. Ungrateful fool. There were no parentheses in that one.
No.
Not one. It's very interesting.
We have, oh, yeah. Don't blow up Jason's head more than it already is. Well, Tier, that's part of your job. You
that's probably true.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I made pie today. I made an apple pie and 2 pumpkin pies.
Nice.
From scratch, yep. Yeah, I got a pie at Thanksgiving. Pie and stuffing. Those are my 2 favorite things.
Pie, I like, yeah, we have a nice stuffing. It just was delivered by Fresh Direct.
Wait a minute, they already made the stuffing?
Well, you could cook it, but you order it like it's yeah.
What kind of stuffing is it?
It's like sausage something.
I make my sausage. I either go back and forth between oysters or sausage. Either go New England or Southern. So it's Southern this year. Yeah.
So we got that. We got that tweet, which is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think LeVar Ball and Donald Trump were meant for each other.
Now, is there also Trump came out for Roy Moore, basically.
Yep. No, he's I think that would be a wonderful photo op, the two of them together, if he goes down and campaigns for him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That'd be beautiful.
Yeah, it's another
oyster dressing. Yeah, I like oyster dressing too, Reynolds.
And then we have and I saw today too that they were saying that Gary Cohen basically hung up the phone. He said, "You're brilliant. We have a bad signal, but you're brilliant, Mr. President. Bye." You sometimes do that with me.
I've done that.
Bad signal.
Yeah. Let's see. I could sit here in the office watching you. Oh, he's going to leave. All right. Well, you should go home. You should go home, Josh. Yeah.
You could just stream it. You could stream it from your phone.
All right. And Josh Redder's here. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Josh.
Yep.
You can stream it from your phone though, in the car, I would think.
Well, no, you're not supposed to be. You're supposed.
Well, you could listen.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
I mean, right? You could,
Yeah, I dusted. So the gang, we're gathering. People are gathering. We're gathering together.
There's a Thanksgiving song, right? Gather.
We gather together. Together. Yeah.
It's hard for me to see the comments for some reason, but well, all right, there we go. So, hey, Dustin, how are you? Dustin Messer.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dustin Messer. I've seen his post a few times. I think he's a like. You're a Reformed guy, right? Dustin, I think. Yeah, I think so. There we go. This kind of stuff he's posting on his Facebook. This is a Canadian of Ovcharka, a dog traditionally used to hunt bears in Russia.
That's right.
Wow. Wow.
That is an animal. That's
amazing.
That is a big animal.
So today we want to talk a little bit about Christianity.
we thought we'd narrow it down a bit.
We'd narrow it down a bit today and talk a little bit about Christianity. There's this article by Molly Worthen, who I think a lot of her work actually.
Right.
She's a
great Americanist.
Yeah, great American historian, religious historian, and she regularly contributes to the New York Times, and her book Apostles of Reason, if people aren't familiar with it, sort of like, kind of dispelling the myth that evangelicalism is anti-intellectual. It's sort of, it can be hyper-rationalist, and there's a sophisticated form. Now, sometimes, again, it sets up its own parallel institutions,
right?
And so you get the anti-science stuff, but at times, but it's not. I mean,
it's a particular version of science.
Yes, she's it's a very interesting, and it's funny. Al Mohler reviewed the book very positively. He thought it's a very important book, and so if Al Mohler thinks it does,
and she actually has carried on Marston's work. I mean, was she a student of his?
I don't know
because she seems to write in a similar.
Yeah, she writes on similar topics. Yeah, she's quite good, but she regularly contributes to the New York Times. One of her most recent pieces was on the importance of memorizing poems. She's done stuff on grammar, and she does other very heavy topics. And
Under the spreading chestnut tree, the village smithy stands.
Yeah, so this is one. Oh, we should hit record, by the way. I'm sort of like just telling everybody, but By the way, I think we're going to start a YouTube channel, which I don't know. I mean, although the people on here probably watch this stuff through Facebook, but I mean, I just think that would help us promote these videos. All right, I'm going to hit record. Welcome back to New Persuasive Words. I'm Scott Jones.
And I'm Bill Bohr.
And Bill, here we are, the day before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Are you grateful?
I am very grateful for many things.
I'll tell you who's not grateful. LeVar
Ball.
LeVar Ball is ungrateful. Not the White House, not the State Department, not him, me. I alone with my relationship with President Xi after his tremendous political victory.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, Tier doesn't have time for YouTube. If you have time for Facebook, you have time for YouTube. That's where you're responding.
Yeah, exactly. One of our Facebook Live listeners doesn't have time.
Doesn't have time. By the way,
doesn't have time for the pain.
Devontae Jones. He does radio for ESPN, and he goes, "All right, first of all, you are 3 7-foot black guys in a store in China, and you shoplift. You don't think you're going to be standing out?"
Yeah,
it was the epitome of stupidity.
You are a standout in that demographic.
Yeah.
So Molly Worthen today. We're going to talk about Christianity today. Really broad. Narrow it down.
We're narrowing it down. We were going to go God.
We're going to go God.
And we got down to Christianity.
And we were going to go gratitude, but that seemed passé. How to Escape from Roy Moore's Evangelicalism by Molly Worthen, a great American religious historian, teaches at UNC.
Yep.
And she wrote this piece about basically how to escape from Roy Moore's evangelicalism. It's about this kind of Christianity that seems kind of David French called it creepy Christianity.
Well, all right, but I think one of the things it's worth the art. We'll put the article in the show notes, link to it. But I think it's worth defining. What does she define as Roy Moore Christianity?
Yeah, I mean, she's thinking this sort of these conservative evangelicals who in her words, she's actually who's she quoting here? She's quoting Kathleen Scheich, who went to Dallas Seminary, and now is kind of frustrated by evangelicals' prejudice and predation in the midst of the evangelical movement. And she says that Ms. Scheich here, who Molly's quoting, says that one more sign that a new ritual has superseded Sunday worship and weeknight Bible studies, a profane devotional practice with immense power to shape evangelicals' beliefs. The liturgy is the nightly consumption of conservative cable news. Liberals love to complain about conservative steady diet of misinformation through partisan media, but Miss Scheich's complaint is more profound. Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson aren't just purveyors of distorted news, but high priests of a false religion.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this. This is a theme that comes up on a regular basis.
By the way, who watches more Fox News that you know that you're friendly with than me?
No one.
I watch a lot of Fox News.
You do watch a lot of Fox.
I call Bill a lot at night. Usually after I've had a little scotch and I've sat and watched Bill. I just fill Bill in.
Someone asked me, do you watch? Do you take times to watch other perspectives on the news? I go, no, because Scott does it.
Oh yeah, I
Scott calls and fills me in, so I don't have to. So that's actually one of the great ways you serve me.
Exactly.
I appreciate that.
My favorite thing is when they bring in Geraldo on the 5, and they're like, and Geraldo starts fact checking, and they're like, they're all looking at him like, is this guy for real? We don't do that here. We don't trot facts out here. The hell? I mean, but it's if everybody has questions about Fox News, I watch a lot of it.
He does, yeah. I think the trouble with the, if you would, the Fox News merger with a kind of Christianity is the same problem that we've critiqued about a particular liberal ideology that got married to, mainline Christianity.
Absolutely.
In other words, the problem is that it's almost impossible not to allow culture or a political agenda to hijack Christianity. I mean, this was years and years ago. This maybe was written. Chuck Colson wrote an editorial back in the early 80s when the moral majority folks were rising. And he said he was very critical of the movement because he said the trouble is that, it's inevitable that power hijacks religion. And he talked about his own experience when he was working for Nixon, that, they brought a bunch of evangelical leaders into the White House. And he said we needed, we were willing to negotiate with them about stuff. But once we gave them a tour of the White House and they were there around the president, we got everything we wanted from them and didn't have to give them anything. And the corrupting nature of power, and also the fact...
It's interesting, too. David French made this point in our conversation I had with him last week. He said that... This is an interesting thing. He said he thinks that evangelical... He thinks your average liberal, because they have more rootedness in elite institutions, they're not quite as impressed by, like, oh, we got to go to the White House, we got to lay hands... Whereas, he said, because evangelicals are sort of more distanced from some of those, it's a big, that you can pick their pockets if you just let them into the Oval Office and these pictures. Like, he thinks that has a much bigger impact on evangelical leaders than it does on most progressives.
Yeah, that could be.
It's just an interesting insight.
Yeah, it may or may not be the case, but I do think there's a sense where it's a. Because our politics really reinforce our inherent prejudices. In other words, we have natural tendencies, I think, towards being liberal or conservative or confused or whatever, or middle or whatever. And so when we're listening to things that...
Fox News confirms my prejudice, because I think people like Sean Hannity is going to get on there and not talk about the truth, reality, or facts, and he confirms it. Wait, is that a prejudice?
I don't know.
It's not just a fact.
It's just point of fact, yeah. So I think instead of the gospel confronting us, confronting our, idolatries, when you have something like the Roy Moore, Fox, or Breitbart, or whatever triangle you want to create down there, then it actually ends up making Christians which we have a good history of this, Christians endorsing really horrible things in the name of expediency, in the name of a greater good. In other words, Hitler can't, I know Hitler says some things that we're a little offended about, but he's going to help restore Germany. There were Christian leaders that talked that way.
Or like Kirk Cameron as a legitimate actor. At one time, Howard Stern, they've had this debate. They had this, I don't know, like, that Kirk Cameron was on Pierce Morgan, and they were arguing about the sexuality issues and stuff. And he's like, if I were Kirk Cameron, I'd be like, you want proof there's a God? Look at here. I'm on your show. I haven't worked in years. Like, I'm a terrible B actor from the 80s. I haven't worked in years. That's proof God exists. I'm on your show.
Yeah. All right. Well, back to the article.
Okay. I'll never forgive the Left Behind people for what they did to Nicolas Cage. Isn't that?
Yeah, Nicolas Cage is quite capable of doing that to himself, though.
I like Nicolas Cage.
What is the bee man? What's the one where the bees, the remake? Oh, Wicker Man. Not the bees.
Yeah. So Molly sort of says that this is, the Fox News, and why it's liturgical, right? Is it's repetitive, almost ritualistic thing, right? You do it every night, and it forms in them particular fears and desires, an idea of America. It's convincing, she thinks, on a logical level, and the church is not communicating to them in that same way. That there's this, now, by logical, I mean there's a logic to it, like that.
Right. There's an interior logic to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I do think there's a sense where.
And then she points out, though, too, also that, like, this is a great thing before you go in there. I'm stepping on your line there. So hours of tearful victims' testimony will not deter evangelicals who see Roy Moore as the latest Christian martyr persecuted by the liberal establishment. I mean, that's an interesting point. That here it's sort of like the liturgical repetition. Now, Roy Moore, and I think the reason this is possible too, I think, is the partisanship. Just like in a different era where people could still win over 40 states and stuff like that, and you had senators from both parties in one state, and that kind of thing. Things like, I think this was probably not as possible, but now it's just, whoever gets put on the not, like Donald Trump, a lot of people did not vote for him in the primaries and were adamant about him, and about the fact that he was not a real conservative, he wasn't fit. Then once he got the nomination, everyone fell in line.
Right, sure. Well, it's like the governor of Alabama says that, he thinks the charges against him may be true, but
she thinks she's a woman.
She's
a woman. She's a woman.
She thinks they might be true, but she's going to vote for the Republican.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Better a Democrat than a pedophile, or better a pedophile than a Democrat.
Yeah, that's the new battle.
That's
cry.
the new standard.
Yeah, that's the new standard.
They're going to see that. Imagine you saw that at a campaign rally.
Yeah.
Better a pedophile than a Democrat.
Yeah. Wow. No, and. I think to me the article's a little bit all over the place. I think she's trying to link a lot of stuff together that doesn't necessarily link together. In terms of, she goes to the Benedict option. And
what she does, I think she's surveying a group of people that are kind of the resistance to this sort of stuff. So it's like, yeah, Jamie Smith, you got the Benedict option, the liturgists, because Benedict option is kind of a conservative version of this sort of protest. The liturgists are more kind of progressive evangelical type of, or post-evangelical kind of part of the protest to this kind of mainstream,
right? To
the 80%. Because this is what evangelicalism is right now, right? There's Wheaton College and Gordon Conwell and Christianity Today, but that's like the 20%, the 81% that are like the Trump supporters she's talking about here.
Are you sure the alumni of Wheaton College are in the 20%? Are you sure the donor base?
No, I'm not sure. I'm just saying I think the people that run those institutions are sort of never Trumpers and
are trying to identify differently.
Yeah, and don't recognize.
Yeah, I agree.
They would not support this kind of base tribal folk religion populist movement, but the 20% don't have much impact on the 80%.
No,
the rank and file people in Baptist churches, independent evangelical churches all across the country don't give a damn what Christianity Today says,
right.
or what these sort of more mature kind of reflective evangelical institutions have to say about things. It's just not. It's the wedge between the rank and file and the people that lead those kinds of evangelicals. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Why don't you think this is still another function of just the splittering of Protestantism? Isn't this? Don't you think this is just part of the larger, where the logical conclusion of the anti-authoritarianism, the anti-traditionalism that started the Protestant Reformation? I mean,
Although I wouldn't say that the Luther and Calvin were anti-authority.
They weren't. But what they did, they opened Pandora's box.
Right. I think
you can't put it back in. You can't put the genie back in.
No, right. I think that especially.
I just mixed my metaphors there. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
I mixed my mythology there.
Exactly. No, yeah. I think that Calvin and Luther are still medieval men and are not for private interpretation. I mean, they still want teaching authority.
Sure, absolutely.
So, but you're right. I mean, I think subsequent to that, especially when you get the Enlightenment taking root, it just you can't put the horses back in the barn.
That was our boy. There's
another one.
There's another one.
I use that right. Or the horse is the fence. You can't. I forget.
How are you gonna get them back to the farm once they've seen Paris?
We're really hitting the metaphors today.
Don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes. No, that has nothing to do with anything. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. But back to
So I think partially it's that. I mean, I think there's probably some degree, and I think also that you have, I think that for some people Christianity is like an ethnicity. We're not Jews, we're not Muslims, we're white, and we're Christian. Like it's a sort of. I mean, this is why it's very interesting. Richard Spencer, right, the head of the alt-right, he's an atheist,
right?
But he thinks Christianity is a really important part of our heritage. I mean, it's kind of paired with a sort of populist nationalism.
Well, yeah, I mean that's how fascism used it. I mean, it's really how fascism used religion in the 20th century. I mean, there is a formula. He knows the formula.
I still love what Jonah Goldberg said about the inaugural debate. He said, Trump could have really made headway if he led with infrastructure, but instead he gave this blood and soil inaugural, the Bannock, which I hear is better in the original German, or maybe Italian.
No, I mean, but we laugh, but we're serious. But I mean, the fact is I have a house near me that flies a "Don't Tread on Me," a Confederate flag, and last time I looked, I think we won the Revolutionary War. I'm pretty sure we did. And number two, we're north of the Mason-Dixon line. So, but these mixing them, and they probably, they're happy that we can say Merry Christmas again, and probably won't be in church on Christmas.
Right. No, that's a I mean, I think that's definitely the case. By the way, did you know Vermont was an independent republic for like 13 years?
I did know that. Yeah.
I just learned that.
Yeah. Yep.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. It was it didn't enter into the. It was the 15th state, I think, Vermont. And now I could be wrong about that. It was not one of the original.
No, that's right.
It's 15th.
Free thinkers.
Yeah, no, in New Hampshire up there, they still are.
Do you know Bernie Sanders got in his last Senate election 21% of the Republican vote in Vermont?
Yeah,
that's astounding.
No, Vermont's a fascinating place.
I mean, that's just a good politics. I mean, you get 21% of the other party's vote. I mean, that's.
No,
that's
well. That used to happen in Pennsylvania all the time. It used to happen in West Virginia as well. Robert Byrd was a Democrat, and he used to carry. He used to get elected 80%.
Vladimir Putin and President Xi with tremendous political victories.
Well, we have counties and states that are one-party places. They're not that dissimilar to how things. That's kind of the tragedy, I think, of people that have allegiance. And again, what do even the political parties stand for anymore? That's the other thing. I mean, that's still shifting, but their allegiance is to a name and to an ideology.
And the gerrymandering stuff, that's another thing I was interested in because David French is one of those guys. He reads oral arguments.
Yeah.
And he said he thinks the Wisconsin case will be decided in favor of the plaintiff who's saying gerrymandering's a problem. This is. But then he said, the problem is still with all this self-sorting and liberals kind of moving to cities, and so he's like, if liberals want to change the country, they got to move out of Brooklyn. And I think this is the part of the issue. I do think there are problems with the gerrymandering, like in Wisconsin, where you can get 60% of the legislature seats with 48% of the popular vote. I mean, that's wacky.
Right.
But even allowing for, they have this really interesting algorithm and stuff. But even allowing for that, there's still going to be unbalanced. I mean, the country is sorting in some ways that are going to make us more alienated, more isolated. And the gerrymandering rulings won't solve all of that. And it'll solve underhanded kind of stuff. But still, we're going to have
No, I think we assume, and this is part of why history is important to learn to know, but we kind of...
You said something to me the other day. I was saying something. You're like, I don't care. You're like, I know. You don't care about history.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah. I was right about that incident. What I was saying then. We won't talk about what it was, but I was right there. All right. But, no, I mean, we forget. I mean, we kind of say, yeah, we had a civil war. We study it and people reenact it. But it didn't resolve itself very well. I mean, basically the South got, whooped. It got driven into the ground, and they were forced in a settlement. But, after Reconstruction ended, there was a lot of, reassorting where a lot of problems weren't solved. I think what's going on in Alabama has as much to do with what didn't get worked out after 1876.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I mean, I think that's probably true.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying that in a judgmental way. It's just a point of fact that we as a country have some very serious issues that, I think, for instance, World War II, we rallied together, okay, and that brought a certain kind of unity. But you read a social history of what was going on in this country in 1918 and the 1920s and the 30s, there was all kinds of significant social revolution stirring and dissatisfaction and horrendous situations in this country. What was going on in 1968, 1969, 1970. So those are just two snapshots. But I think the fact that this union prevail is not a given. It is certainly not.
Yeah, another thing that's interesting when people talk about the impeachment of President Trump, like Will Mueller,
Yeah.
But that's a dangerous thing. Impeaching a president, right, can rip apart the country if you unseat. I mean, there's a cost to electing somebody that's unfit for office,
right?
Because we're not a.
By the way, I'd like to make a toast to James Buchanan because doesn't look so bad right now.
Exactly.
The only president Pennsylvania ever had, James Buchanan.
We're not a parliamentary system, right?
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, where it's different. Like when somebody's not succeeding in a parliamentary system.
Is that why my social liberal? Is that why my social Christian party votes never get counted?
Exactly. Yeah.
Shoot.
It is different. Like when you make
we in Labor here. I keep looking for my Labor candidates, and they're not here in Bucks County.
We actually do live in one of the more 50-50-ish areas.
Yeah, we do.
It's right. That's why CNN did so much interviews around here during the election. But yeah, I mean, in a parliamentary system, the stakes aren't as high when you have someone you got to get rid of. Because the party, it's just a different thing. But
you can dissolve the government.
Right. Yeah.
I wish we had that option.
Start over.
Let's just dissolve the government tomorrow. Yeah. But no, I think you're right. I mean, and there's a reason it's only ever, we're only talking about 3 times it has ever happened. And really 2 of those times were driven by politics. Again, I mean, I think we won't get into the Clinton situation, but I mean, what he did was wrong, but was it an impeachable offense? That's a different. Should he resign? That's a whole other issue.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, really, Nixon was the only. I mean, Andrew Johnson. He wasn't very competent, but that was because he was trying to really, in some levels, in his own incompetent way, carry on the vision of Abraham Lincoln about bringing the country back together.
Somebody in the 19th century in D.C. said, I read this article about Johnson. He said, no matter how bad you think Andrew Johnson is, you eventually find out he's worse.
Yeah, but at that point, that was bad. It would be fun for those of you who are Republicans now to see what your Republican Party was like in 1868, because it was a very different kind of what they cared about was very different, almost diametrically opposed to what they care about today.
Well, this is a Southern strategy too, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
you really, I mean,
yeah, the Republicans now are really, in many ways, the old Confederacy.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not. I mean, at least in the South, in the Southeast,
Yeah.
it's people that were in that. Yeah, geographically shifted.
Yeah. That was the Nixon.
Yeah, it's the
10 soldiers and Nixon coming. It's the gift, Richard M. Nixon, the gift that keeps on giving.
our last liberal president. I mean, you look at policy wise, Nixon, the EPA, affirmative action. He was even, I think, trying to get rid of the local school board funding system because it's unjust. Like, and they were national. I mean, when you look back politically, Nixon looks like a progressive.
That's right. And Reagan looks like a moderate.
Yeah, yeah.
It's pretty remarkable.
But it is issue too. Imagine a Republican Party where Barry Goldwater, the old enemy, just goes to the West and says, you have to resign. I mean, this was their own party's president. You know, like these are.
I think there's a mythology behind the Goldwater. I mean, he did, but the writing, it was almost a face-saving thing. I actually just read there was a rewriting of that whole thing. But you're right, you'd have to go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just interesting. Like that would you're not going to see that happen today.
No, because we don't have. There's no.
We
we have a couple people of courage.
Yeah, like Mitch McConnell.
No, that's not the first
Paul
name.
Ryan.
Those are not. None of those names
Paul
came to mind. Yeah. Maybe one of the most disappointing guys of all.
What did C.S. Lewis say in like The Weight of Glory or something? Or was it in The Abolition of Man? That's time. Men, the rising of men without chests.
Yes.
There you go. That's the congressional leadership.
He does great cardio, but it has not given him any heart.
No.
Well, we've kind of got a little bit off our.
Okay, yeah. So basically, they talk about that she quotes Jamie Smith, who has written extensively about this stuff, and he says, we are ultimately liturgical animals because we are fundamentally desiring creatures. We are what we love, and she talks about idolatry and the Benedict option, and also she mentions, as we said before, the liturgists and some other folks who are, trying to. It's funny because she talks about how Richard Rohr says that he was surprised that the most popular books for selling with younger evangelicals right now, and these are probably that 20%, are about liturgy and personal spiritual formation. So there's this.
I mean that really was my 20-some years ago. Actually, probably now almost 30 years ago. I just found evangelicalism just wore out for me. It just didn't give me what I needed, spiritually or intellectually. And, certainly I was a psychology major and was at Princeton and loved the education at Princeton, but that certainly wasn't giving me the existential or theological or spiritual answers I needed. So part of my studying church history, not part of it, probably the majority of it was my own search for roots, for something deeper and something more substantial. So going deeper into the tradition and I've said before, I was reading Barth at Princeton, and I kept reading the footnotes, the long footnotes from Athanasius. I go, well, maybe I should learn Athanasius before I learn Barth, and that's kind of how the journey began. But I do think there's a sense where, we talked about this. One person said, the death of American Christianity because of this kind of prejudicial and myopic following of political people in the name of Christ. I mean, we have a history of that as Christians. Okay? We have a very checkered history as Christians. I do think that we'll pay, Christianity will pay. What you sow, you're going to reap. And the fact is, the anti-intellectualism, the lack of teaching the Bible, the lack of a engagement with your community and other things, we are reaping what has been sowed in previous generations as a church. Some of this is not our fault. Some of it's just what's going on in culture, and there are times where the church just has to hunker down and do its work and be faithful. But when you put your Christianity in a box and you hand that box to false prophets and Antichrist, like Moore's an Antichrist.
I was going to say, wait, Is Hannity the false prophet and Tucker's the Antichrist?
They're both. I mean, they both are. They both are. They both are, because what they stand for is Antichrist. Okay. Now, the right wing does not have a monopoly on being Antichrist. Okay. There's certainly plenty of it other around. But if you call, that's blaspheming the Holy Spirit. When you call bad good and good bad, that's what Jesus said. You're getting close here to the Pharisees, because they were accusing him of casting out demons in the name, casting out demons in the name of the devil. And Jesus said, "You're getting close. You're getting close."
Only I can fix it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the unforgivable sin is when you call evil good. That's because you've turned the world so far upside down that you can't discern right from wrong. And Dante in Inferno, that's why the devil is frozen upside down, because he sees the world upside down and makes him mad the way God does things. He flaps his wing and he keeps himself frozen. I mean, if evangelicals continue on this road, they're going to be frozen in the hell of their own making. And that's and they will reap that. Okay. And I mean, it'll be part of another not so great chapter in American Christianity.
And we've talked about this before. Like, it's a lesson that, like, you could have learned from liberal Protestantism.
Oh, yeah. Look,
I mean, this is what killed mainline Protestantism. It was too much in the early 60s. It was too politicized. And it's one of the contributing factors of actually the evangelical sort of boom was people wanted a more religious religion.
Right. They wanted faith. They wanted to learn how to say their prayers. They wanted
evangelicalism just kind of mirrored it.
They've become the exact same thing, and the same thing will happen to them.
So it's really, by the way, I was just thinking about this, and we should at some point do this in the future. I think it would be very interesting for us to take a podcast or two and talk about the Marsden thesis and some of its competitors.
Sure.
I mean,
well, tell them what that is.
I mean, like, well, basically, you have this kind of, I think you have this kind of one understanding of American religious history that sees the kind of fundamentalist modernist controversy, right, as fairly determinative. You have others that don't, like
right.
that think, like, for instance, who's the guy from Westminster? He wrote that Machen Bible, D.G. Hart. He really thinks that it's the new school, old school split.
Right.
You see, that's the divine thing. One, a more continental European kind of Christianity that's Augustinian, that's a pilgrim faith inherited from the forest, and another more sort of revivalistic, pietistic, personalistic. And he thinks that split, by the time you get to the fundamentalist modernist controversy, it's all the children of the new school. Like, right. It's all, the liberals and the fundamentalists. Right, no. And so it would just be interesting to talk about to give our, if anybody cares, to give our take on what brought us to this moment.
Yeah, and it's not accident. I mean, that's the other thing, too. I mean, it's not surprising we're here. That's part of what we're trying to say. How we've gotten here makes sense historically, and what, there's a logical progression. We didn't have to get here, but this, to me, is just the ongoing. I wouldn't even call it working out. It feels more like the sputtering out.
Yeah.
It feels like, the tank's running on empty and fumes, and this is what we get. But again, from a historical perspective, Christians have done similar things with different ideologies, different times, and they've run the thing into the ground, and God raises up new things. But that doesn't mean great damage isn't done in the interim. And so, I think we have an obligation to come out from among them, be ye separate from among them, and, try to be about the things that we were called to be as Christians, and the amazing gospel of Jesus Christ and the liberating message that has to offer people.
Yeah, it's interesting because she concludes this article by saying all the people she mentioned before have one thing in common. The instinct that worship should be an act of humility, not hubris. It should be a discomfiting experience, not a doubling down on what's easy and familiar. The battle for the soul of evangelicalism, the struggle to disentangle it from white supremacy, from misogyny, and from the instinct to defend politicians like Roy Moore, demands sound arguments grounded in evidence. But the effort must also advance at the precognitive level, in the habits and relationships of worshiping communities. Fellowship has the power to refashion angry gut feelings and instead form meek hearts and bound in duty. And I think that that's well said. I mean, I think that again, what you're saying, if we had to kind of church culture that actually formed people to learn who the God revealed in Jesus Christ is, what the nature of the gospel is, how to be about tending to first things, not without using to a real spirituality, not this kind of sort of something that becomes the Sunday form of the weekly rancor.
Yeah, and progressive evangelicals out there, don't be so damn self-righteous, because you can become just like the people you're criticizing. I mean, really, I'm serious. Don't feel superior. I mean, they are your brothers and sisters. We all, and I think that's really important too.
I think this,
because evangelicalism they have to be the righteous. That's the trouble with the whole neo-Anabaptist movement.
That's why all those Zondervan 4 Views books sell so well, because we got to have 4 views on something, and I find the right one.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just another way to nullify the grace of God. So I think the fact of the matter is that I'm very grateful for the evangelicalism that fed and taught me my faith. And to be honest with you, that's part of the foundation that really spurs me to reject this current antichrist kind of Christianity. But if they are children of God and they are baptized Christians, they're still my brothers and sisters. So being critical of their idea, and it's all right to call them antichrist if they're antichrist, but we have to be careful that what we are saying, we can create a new kind of legalism and self-righteousness.
Judgmentalism knows no bounds or partisan kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. I mean, if something's antichrist, it's the New Testament's full of calling it antichrist, but that's not their ultimate judgment's not in my hands. So,
yeah, thank God for that.
Yeah, thank God for that.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks for dialing in, everybody. It was we really didn't have much of a game plan coming into this podcast.
Yeah, there were times we got lost there in the middle a little bit, but
but that's fine. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a kind of an appropriate night before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Rift. So all be well.
Do you want to go to happy hour?
Yeah.
My wife's at the Rover.
We should go.
Yeah. Let's go over.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.